Roger Cooper. Today we're going to talk about the 2020 NFL Draft, mostly about the running backs and the draft order in which they were picked. Some things transpired over the past few weeks regarding some different things that I had indicated based on the draft selections and how that impacted some Buckeye fans based on J.K. Dobbins and where he went in the draft. It all started roughly about a year ago. Dobbins had made a statement to the USA Today that he thought he was the quote-unquote greatest back in the nation. Of course, he was not featured in their top 5 picks. That pretty much triggers me to challenge that type of comment. So if you're part of Buckeye Nation, in my opinion, you've got to represent yourself well, and if you're going to make that type of statement again, you really need to back it up. So about halfway through the season, I evaluated kind of his performance against some of the other backs that USA Today and some other media networks like ESPN and so forth had the backs rated, and I just didn't see eye to eye with J.K. on his self-evaluation or proclamation that he was the greatest. What I've done is I've taken a bunch of statistics, taken some clips, and used, of course, the draft itself to put together a little presentation to kind of justify, how the NFL came up with their series of draft picks, and of course my opinion on the situation myself. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at some of the data, look at some of the clips, and we'll work our way through that here over the next half hour or so. So let's check it out.
Okay, this is the actual news article by USA Today that really kind of provoked or started, my interest in the subject. But we'll go on and we'll look at the 5 backs that just went in the draft. It's kind of part of this evaluation. The first is Clyde Helaire out of LSU. He was the first-round pick, the only one of the 5 that went in the first round. Then we got DeAndre Swift out of Georgia. He's second-round pick at number 35 to the Lions. Big Ten Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin, second-round pick number 41. Cam Akers out of Florida State, second-round pick, 52, went to the Los Angeles Rams. And then J.K. Dobbins, second-round pick out of Ohio State, went at number 55. And then again, just ironic that the top 4 players that I picked back in December as being my All-Americans, the first 3 were the actual first 3 draft picks in the NFL draft, and the number 4 was the only running back took in the first round. So I thought that was a pretty good assessment for myself this past season. But one of the things that I'd like to dispel is the reasoning that some people have trying to give for Helaire being taken in the first round, that it's because he fit into the scheme. There is no scheme for running backs. There's 3 types of running backs. And you got a blocking back like Devlin out of New England. They're big backs. They're set with power, basically to lead for a tailback with few carries throughout the year. And then you got the great Eddie George, basically a huge linebacker that's blazing fast, that likes to run the football. But those are your running backs when it's third and short. They're going to get you the yard or two. The one thing that really separates that type of back from the backs that we're talking about is the smaller backs. The 5 again that we're talking about today. A good example would be Barry Sanders. They're very, very elusive, very fast, almost magical in the way they perform, and you'll see that in some of the clips coming up. But these backs, they're all-purpose backs. They're expected to run, catch, block with equal ability. But they're all in the same category. So scheme has no bearing in the draft here. They're all relative in the same profile, with Helaire actually being the smallest at 5'7", and they're all within about 4 or 5 pounds, plus or minus 4 or 5 pounds of each other. So again, profile-wise, these are categorized as all-purpose backs. A little smaller, all very quick, and every team would have the same expectation. They're going to take the one that they feel can do the best job. And here's how the draft is considered. These are the things that the coaching staffs and the scouts are going to look at when they evaluate which player they're going to take. It's not a matter of how many rushing yards you have in the season. It's a combination of a lot of different attributes. Too often, there's a lot of bias when people have their favorites, and it leads to a lot of negativity. And that's, again, one of the things that's generated this. But yards rushing, J.K. Dobbins and Taylor, they tied with 2,003, and then Helaire coming in third with 1,400 yards. Now, there's another part of the story, though. It's not just necessarily the yards, but what's more important is the yards per carry. That really tells a story about the power and durability of the back, making yards after contact. When you look at yards per carry, Dobbins is still first, though. He's at 6.7, but Clyde Helaire is right there at 6.6, a tenth of a point behind him, which is, again, that really emphasizes my point, and it's going to make more sense as we get down some of these graphs here. But when you talk about yards per carry, Helaire is right there with Dobbins. One of the things that's expected of a running back is ball security. And again, here's another stat that Clyde Edwards completely leads the pack in. He had 2 on the season. It's kind of surprising. Jonathan Taylor had 6, which was 2 times more than 3 of the other backs. That's a big flag that I would think that would impact the draft. Receiving, Clyde Edwards again. He just really separated himself from the other running backs. He had twice the yardage as the other running backs, and that's, again, when we talk about an all-purpose back, you're talking about not just carrying the football, but actually being a receiver, being a good outlet out of the backfield. The quarterbacks are going to check down. That's your relief. When you look at the number of receptions, kind of like yards per carry. He had the yards and he had the reception. So when you talk about an all-purpose back in the NFL, there's a lot of passing. It's a passing league, and the running backs are expected to make catches. And again, here's another category where Helaire has separated himself. When you take everything as far as rushing, passing, or should I say receiving, and kick return, we're going to look at how many yards every time these players touch the football. How many yards are they gaining? Helaire, 7.5. leads the pack. Every time that guy touches the ball, it's 7.5 yards a carry. And again, that takes into consideration all parts of the offense, run, pass, and special teams kick return. Out of the 5 backs, again, here's another category where Helaire just separates himself. 3 of the backs had no kick returns last year. Helaire had 214 yards. That's something in the NFL, when you have limited rosters, the backs are expected. Again, anything you can do to contribute in a second or a third capacity is a big plus in the National Football League. And here's something, it's just another category where Helaire has separated himself from the other 4 players. When you look at all the categories combined, Cam Akers has, leads in none. DeAndre Swift leads in the combine score. That would be an edge he had. Dobbins coming up, or actually Jonathan Taylor, in durability as far as injuries, he has none. He has none recorded. He has so he gets 2 trophies there. He tied in most yards rushing with Dobbins, and again, he's had no injuries in his career. So when you look at his profile or a scouting report, it's none. That's huge. Dobbins, he carries he leads the pack in 2 of the categories. Again, he's tied with Jonathan Taylor in total yards rushing, and also leads in yards per carry at 6.8 or 6.7. I'd like to point out again, though, that Helaire is only 1/10 of a point behind him. And this is going to be this is going to set the tone right here. When you look at, again, an all-purpose back going to the National Football League, ball security, receptions, receiving yards, pass protection, he was the highest rated back in pass protection blocking. And I'm going to show you some video clips up here that are going to be, going to give you more information or help you maybe understand more about what I'm trying to say when we're rating these backs for an NFL draft, or maybe who is the best pick, justifying the best pick. So dropping 3 of the backs out of this category, let's talk about Edwards and Dobbins, because I said Edwards was the best on the year back before the draft. You know, why Edwards over Dobbins? So we'll take a quick look here. This is one of the highlights I pulled off of the internet on, on Dobbins highlights. If you notice throughout here, it's basically it's a lot of long runs, but he's untouched. You know, it's a great credit to Ohio State's line, as it is Dobbins. But wait till you see you know, Clyde Helaire's clips. They're not, you know, 10-yard wide holes that he's running through.
Like the J.T. Barrett style of offense of a couple of years ago.
Here's Dobbins bursting through the hole. Watch out, J.K. Dobbins.
And that's one of the things too is that has been brought up in the scouting reports is, you know, he's definitely got a lot of yards rushing, but he doesn't have the breakaway speed. Usually he will be caught by the DBs. Although he has had some great runs that he did separate, but most of the time he's gonna be caught, gonna be outran before he gets to the end zone.
For opening drive of the second half for the Bucs, and Fields looking in the end zone. Touchdown, J.K. Dobbins.
And he's going to add to his total. Inside the 10. Diving. Touchdown, Ohio State. And after the rough start, the Buckeyes take the lead.
So shortly we're going to go into the Clemson game here, and we're going to look at the 2 big runs that he had, and you'll see the size of the holes. And the rest of these clips are going to be exclusively the Clemson game, which again, scouts and coaching staffs in the National Football League are going to look at how you play on these big stages. But here's the 2 big long runs. You take these long runs away. Again, you've seen he wasn't touched. Watch how big the hole is coming up here in slow motion. Like I said, he's caught from behind. He didn't finish the run here, but look how big this hole is coming up. I mean, you take any running back in D1 football, and they're going to have the same result or better. So you take these 2 long runs out right here, and he basically has about a 30 or 40-yard day. Here was the second big run.
In the clear. Off to the races. Can they run him down? They cannot. Touchdown, Ohio State.
Here in slow motion, you'll see it. Again, just really nice hole opened up by the line. Now, I'll give him some credit, too. He's making the reads. He's patient and hitting the hole at the right time. So that's got to give him some credit as well. Now we'll move on to, you know, the critical drop passes. And that was the right call by the officials. You got to complete the catch coming down. He didn't. You'll notice the ground helps him make the catch here. He actually loses control on the ground.
Definitely going to take a peek.
So it's not crossing the plane until you've established yourself in the field of play, which he did not. So that was the correct call. Every NFL ref will say the same thing, or did actually.
It's a screen. Dobbins bobbled it.
Wide open, beautiful touch pass by Fields. He turns his head upfield before he actually secures the catch, resulting in a field goal instead of a touchdown. Now we're going to go into the blocking. One of the critical things that on the scouting report is he takes plays off, meaning during play time on the field. You notice he's right here blocking back. He doesn't get set. He makes no attempt, zero attempt to block. Here he actually makes initial contact with the defender, but he doesn't sustain the block, and that's the his defender that he's responsible for actually ends up making the sack because he doesn't sustain it. He quits on the play. He makes light contact, gives up, sack. This one right here, he doesn't make contact at all. He has again the responsibility to pick up anybody coming through or around the outside. He doesn't even get a hand on him. This is probably one of the biggest things that hurt him in his scouting report is blocking or taking time off during plays. He's not given 100%. Now let's look at Clyde Edwards. This is just Alabama. This is just one game. I mean, he's unbelievable, and he's got a clean injury record as well, where Dobbins had a broken femur and has some ankle injuries. There he just run through the entire 5 guys touched him on that last one, and he ended up still standing up in the end zone. This is just sickening right here, that spin move.
Touchdown,
That's the
LSU.
kind of stuff Barry Sanders did. And I'm not comparing him to Barry totally, but when you're talking about an all-purpose back, these are the things you're expecting. It's just, it's unbelievable how good Helaire was. But props to all 5 of these backs. They've earned their opportunity in the NFL. Pray for them that they go on and do great things for themselves and their communities. I appreciate you watching.